Welcome to Threatsafe. This is our podcast to help SMEs and SMBs and the people who manage IT within those businesses or responsible for IT to get the very best from the technology that they deploy and then also to manage their cyber security. Let's listen to this week's podcast. Hello everybody, welcome to Threatsafe episode 6. We're here together for the first time. In person, in the same room with really bad lighting, which is why I've got a shiny head. We'll sort it out for the next podcast, actually. Sit in a dark room and maybe things will improve. We've been talking about various subjects recently, which have moved on from just pure cybersecurity. But we're going to return to cybersecurity today, Toby, because we've concentrated very carefully and in depth about how you protect yourself as a business, and also what you should do in how you should prepare for an attack and such like. What I'd like to talk to people about today is what happens if somebody else in your supply chain or as a key supplier or whatever gets compromised, and how ready are you for that? And this won't necessarily be a technological discussion. It's about planning.
Yeah, it's thought-provoking.
Yeah,
thought-provoking.
Hey, I forgot to introduce ourselves, so I'll do that now. Martin Roberts, Managing Director of Newways.
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer at Newways.
Anyway, you should always have a plan which you follow all the time, but sometimes not.
Yeah, sometimes ad lib.
Ad lib, and that's what we do. Okay, so I was thinking about this because you can. I think when you're in control of events, you may have lost control of events because you've been compromised, you've been hacked, or there's something going on. At least in theory, you are in control of events. I was thinking about what if you woke up one morning and suddenly your delivery contractor just didn't turn up.
Yeah.
And it's because they've been compromised. So are they likely to tell you, do you think, Toby, straight away?
Probably not straight away, because they probably don't know.
Yeah. So you're beginning to say, well, what's going on? You're trying to contact people, you're not getting a response. What can you do in that situation? And the truth is,
there's not an awful lot. I mean, if you're that reliant on a particular organisation, they're probably integrated into your business systems, and it's not easy just to interchange those things. And if you've got lorries after lorries after lorries coming and going all day, you can't just pick up the phone and find another person to bring lorries and lorries and lorries.
Absolutely. So I mean, that integration piece is also really important, because we increasingly are putting systems in whereby the orders and the delivery notes and all the processes are done electronically. It's sent to the third party, and it just happens in the background. Imagine walking in one day and finding out that's not there anymore. So the question to people who listen to this podcast and sometimes watchers is, what is your contingency? Do you have one in that situation where your logistics company isn't available? So what are you going to do? If you find out, how are you going to communicate the issue? What's your backup? Have you got a list of companies you can phone to say, hello, I'm in a bit of trouble, I need your help, etc. So that one is actually quite horrible. And what I would almost say is that this is something you can't protect yourself against, except for one thing, which is, are you checking your supply chain for their quality of their cybersecurity stance? What should you look for in a supply chain partner?
Yeah, and I think there are several things you can evaluate your supply chain partner and make sure that they are taking care of themselves properly.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I would always say is see if they are cyber essentials or better. That at least shows that they're doing the basics to an agreed level, and if they've got Cyber Essentials Plus, or if they're ISO 27001 or something like that, then yes, so much the better. But it's actually surprising how many what you might call critical suppliers don't have any of these things. Doesn't mean they're not doing them, but you just want some way of saying, well, I've vetted them in some capacity. Now, if they don't have these things, your other option is to give them a questionnaire and get them to fill it in. But that puts the onus then back on you to review that content and establish whether it is they meet muster or not.
Yes.
The nice thing about saying something like Cyber Essentials, Cyber Essentials Plus, or something like that, is that you are trusting that certifying body. You don't have to go and do that investigation yourself and an analysis of their environment. Somebody else has already done that, and you're taking that. So you trust the person that has accredited them, and that gives you then hopefully some not I said protection, but gives you some peace of mind.
Yeah, I'd agree, absolutely. So that's one scenario I thought about, and then I was thinking a little bit further. If you use a third-party logistics organisation, so you store your stuff in their warehouse, and they do that, and they get compromised. Is stuff going to go out the doors? What are the lines of communication? What obligation does the supplier, the third-party logistics organisation, have, or what dialogue have you got with them for them to tell you early on that we've got a problem, folks?
Yeah, because they don't have to say exactly what the problem is. They just have to say, we're not. You must have some kind of SLA with them.
Yes.
There should be some agreement in there that says we will tell you when we're not going to make SLA.
Yes.
This much ahead of breaching it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If there's a 4-hour turnaround on receiving an order to it going on a lorry, you want to know halfway through that if it's not going to happen.
Yeah, and again, very important that you have those conversations with those parties, because if you know sooner, you can start speaking to your customers and saying there's a problem. The one thing that people don't like is not knowing what's going on, and that's very, not only yourselves but your customers. I think it's really key.
Yeah, particularly in this day and age where people expect things yesterday. The next day delivery is expected on goods and services, and if you're not going to meet that, it's good business practice to communicate with your customers that you're not going to be able to do it.
So I think having a written plan, which some days you should rehearse occasionally with your entire team to say, this could happen, this is what we would do in this event. So don't leave it to the day. Hopefully it never happens. However, if it does, you're ready. So that was the other one I thought of. Then I was thinking about a lot of companies use production machinery, which is computer controlled. And what if that company got into trouble and people somehow compromised your machines because they'd use their logins to get to machines? And so now, luckily, let's say it's not traversed the rest of the organisation and the rest of the network, but it's only taken your main production machine down. What's your plan, folks? What are you going to do? You'll hold some stock if you do that sort of thing, but if you're making things to order, the impact's going to be, again, how do you evaluate the supplies in that scenario? So we've done a lot of work with third-party suppliers who do those services, who maintain machines remotely. We also know that we put things in place to prevent unauthorized access. But what if they have got the credentials? What are you going to do? What can you do as a business today to try and protect yourself from that issue?
Yeah, and I think this comes back down to general cybersecurity good practice. We spoke previously around segmenting networks, keeping that production network away from the main IT network. One thing that's really, really important is wherever possible, you as the organisation should own the inbound access method, because that way you've got control over that. So if you suspect something is amiss, you've got the ability to kick that person out of the network. If you're reliant on a third party, and we've seen this, some third parties put their own remote access tool in, and you've got no control over it. Now, some of them mitigate that. They have a little key switch on the front, so there has to be a physical authorization to enable it. But again, it's layers of complexity. I would then say the sorts of things that we do in the IT or the corporate networks, make sure that wherever possible, you've got everything as up to date as it possibly can be. Run security software. Take off bits of software that you don't need. If the equipment supports it, run the firewall. So a lot of these pieces of equipment are repurposed Windows PCs. There are some custom operating systems out there, but a lot of them are Windows XP or Windows 7. They've got firewalls. use those, configure those so that people can't get into them as easily. Look for security software that supports these older operating systems. That may mean that you have to create some additional rules in your network to allow them to report home and say, they can report their telemetry back to the central monitoring, but treat them very much as though they are part of because they are part of your company network. Treat them in the same way wherever you can as you would the corporate or the IT network.
Absolutely.
So endpoint security, patch them as well as you can, firewalls, least privilege. If they don't need to run as administrative users, don't let them run as administrative users. It's the standard things that we say for normal networks, really.
Okay. I guess the other area that I thought about, we talked about things going out, third-party logistics and stuff, but if you have you rely on a particular supplier for the main component of your production, supply that goes into your product, what's your contingency, folks? Because if they get hit and they suddenly can't deliver for a day, 2 days, more, and it could be that. And of course, this is all intertwined, because it might not be the people who deliver that product to you. It could be the people who deliver that product to you from that manufacturer. I mean, it's a bit begins to get a bit frightening when you think about it too much. But you have to think about it, and you have to have a plan. So, how much stock should you hold as a business? These days, maybe there's a case for holding a little bit more stock of your raw materials to cope with such a problem. So you've got that contingency. I'm not advocating it necessarily. You need to do a careful study of it and work out. And it may well be that you speak to that particular key supplier, who should be on your special list of people to contact, and to evaluate for the cybersecurity, to say, what are we going to do if this happens to you? How are you supplied? What is your stock? What is your what will you do in this issue? What would the logistics be if suddenly you can't use your normal delivery company? So these are things that as people who listen and watch this, we say it's for people who are in charge of IT, responsible for IT, but don't necessarily execute it. This is what needs to be in some of your plans for your business continuity and disaster recovery, because even though it's not happening to you directly, it could happen to you indirectly, and the impact could be just as big, and you've got no control.
I would think that diversification is a good option as well. There's a drive to try and consolidate suppliers for efficiencies, but within our own business, we have a handful of core suppliers, so we don't have one person that's kind of got all the eggs in that basket. So if they have a problem, not every aspect of our business is affected. I think that may not be possible for everybody, but it's certainly something to look at. If you are taking in, rubber beads because you're injection molding something, can you get them from more than one place? Because at least, if nothing else, you've got an alternate supply route.
Okay, so not a long one today, but plenty to think about, and I think it's take a few minutes, take more than a few, spend some time working out what those vulnerabilities are from your suppliers, your supply chain and such like. Work out how you're going to evaluate the quality of the cybersecurity in those suppliers and those third-party people, and if they haven't thought about it and they don't have a plan already, work with them to develop a plan, and ask them to provide to you information which gives you comfort. And that's probably about the best you can do.
Yeah. I really like the idea of trying to incorporate cybersecurity into those contracts you have with your supply chain.
Absolutely.
Make it a mandatory part of them supplying you. You must do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And if it's Cyber Essentials plus that kind of thing, it can just be a simple one line, but it's contractually binding then.
Absolutely.
And if they fail to get that, or it turns out they don't have it, then they're in breach of contract, and you've got a different set of tools in your armory then.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you very much, Toby, for those insights, and thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And if you're of that type, watching as well, we appreciate it. I'm either going to get talc or better lighting. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Threatsafe. We hope you found it enjoyable and informative. Please reach out with any comments, feedback, questions, and we look forward to seeing you soon.